Why did Turkey shoot down a Russian jet? Was it because Russia violated their airspace? Well, this can't be the case. I already explained how you couldn't have done this in a 17-second window without planning it ahead of time. And now, Russia shows us they never even crossed the border. Meaning not only did Turkey have to plan this, but they had to cross into Syrian airspace to drop the jet. So why did they do it? We know it wasn't in their best interest, especially with Russia planning on installing new power plants in the region. Also, tourists being a large part of the economy. Well, let's take a look here. We, the West, publicly shaming Putin for violating the airspace he likely never even crossed. But on the other side of the spectrum, we have U.S. military officials and leaked documents stating that Turkey was out of line.
So I don't really trust President Erdogan and what he's doing.
Okay.
I think we have to be very, very cautious on this.
Yep.
I think it was an overly aggressive maneuver.
Okay.
And as a NORAD region commander, we would not use these kind of rules of engagement. That had to be pre-planned.
Okay.
That airplane wasn't over Turkish territory long enough.
Long enough, okay.
Looks like the good old US of A is playing both sides again. This is nothing new. Anyone remember pre-Desert Storm, when we were publicly shaming Saddam Hussein, but then telling him directly and under the table that we supported him? Also stating that he was a better leader than the others in the Middle East, basically sweet-talking him into invading Kuwait. Why? Well, because this was the start of a plan, and I'll get to that in a minute. We also saw the same intervening in many other conflicts, but a more recent example would be in Ukraine. Before the protest, starting from 1991 up until 2013, the US had given over $6 billion in funding certain political figures and media outlets. So basically putting a pro-West leader in power and sponsoring propaganda, which ultimately led to the Ukrainian Civil War. And of course we blame Putin when he steps in to resolve the issue. So the US is no stranger to getting its hands dirty. Just like with Hillary Clinton, or should I say Killary Clinton, in Benghazi, Libya. Before the conflict, you had almost no Al-Qaeda there. Look at it now. Now we have Syria and ISIS, which sprung up out of nowhere. Or was it just a repackage of Al-Qaeda? Anyway, we started funding moderate rebels to fight them, which in turn just ended up handing over their gear to ISIS, and in many cases joining them. That's why we saw them riding around in the new Toyota Helixes and US-made guided anti-tank launchers. So again, we have the US essentially funding a group and using a tactic called funneling. This is where they force a proxy army into an area to fight another group. They did this by airstrikes in Iraq, forcing them to fully move into Syria and fight Assad and the Syrian government, which the US claims gassed his own citizens for no apparent reason. Later leaked documents showed it was planned and carried out by hired mercenaries and the US. What the hell, right? Why does the US keep sticking its nose in things? Well, it's all a part of that plan I mentioned earlier.
This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
This started with Desert Storm, but really kicked off with 9/11. So Syria, now covered in ISIS and moderate rebels, Assad's days were starting to look numbered. So he calls for help. Russia. But wait, Russia won't intervene, right?
Because they will not act, just as they didn't act when the Israelis 4 times have taken out targets inside Syria. Syria said that they would react, and they didn't. The United States is the most powerful nation in the world, and we're not going to be intimidated by Russia and China. We are not. So I guarantee you that they will not act. If we launch these strikes against Syria, they will not act.
So with Russia's unexpected appearance, the US's plan to have ISIS overthrow Assad was starting to look shattered in almost a week. Well shit, now they had to rethink this plan. This is where Turkey comes in. With the US ceding the approval of shooting down Russian jets, with people like Lindsey Graham saying, "I would shoot Putin's planes down." Then the Pentagon sending F-15s to Turkey less than a month before this happened, stating, "We want to be able to put capabilities in Turkey's hands to defend their sovereign airspace." So yet again, we have the US pushing countries to do things they likely wouldn't do otherwise. So the question is, why? Well, with ISIS on its last legs, and Assad doesn't look to topple anytime soon, it would seem they plan to come at this with another approach. Neither side truly wants World War III, or you would assume they wouldn't if they had a brain cell whatsoever, because this would ensure a total global suicide with enough nukes to make the Earth a second Mars. So let's assume the US wants a new proxy army, just like ISIS. A new boogeyman to manipulate, to do their will, to get the job done without directly having responsibility for the actions that they choose. If we look at Turkey, it has a large ethnic group of people called the Kurds, with some 16 million Kurds in Turkey and an estimated 25 to 35 million in the Middle East. Sparking a Kurdish revolution would likely lead to not only a Turkey civil war, but the recapturing of historic Kurdistan, which includes large parts of Iran and Syria. A united Kurdish army would put ISIS to shame, likely reaching into the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. Kurdish militias and factions such as the PKK and the PYD already exist and are fighting in Syria and Iran, holding territory. The PKK and its newer branch, the PYD, have been fighting off and on with Turkey since the 70s. This only reached a ceasefire in 2013. The sporadic flare-ups have still been going on since today, with conflicts increasing as we speak. The PKK are labeled a terrorist organization by Turkey, the US, the UK, and most European countries. Needless to say, tensions are high between Turkey and the Kurds, and it wouldn't take much to set them off. In fact, it would appear with the recent assassination of Kurdish lawyer and human rights activist Tariq El-C, someone was trying to do just that. Right after a public speech calling for peace between Turkey and the PKK and requesting that Turkey take the PKK off the terrorist list, he was shot dead. Now if we examine the video, it would appear to be planned, with using one shooter as a distraction and another behind to shoot him in the head.
Hemen binanın altında. Yok gelme. Yok çık sen çık.
Immediately after the announcement of his assassination, hordes of angry Kurds made to the streets in protest. What better way to spark a revolution than to shoot the one calling for peace? The US was quick to act, however, saying, "Our condolences go to his family, that of the policemen killed, and to all of Turkey, a terrible loss." This was posted on the US and Turkish embassy Twitter almost immediately after. So again, we have the US playing both sides. This wouldn't be the first time the Kurds were used by the West. During World War I, the Western powers, fighting the Ottoman Empire, which is present-day Turkey, bribed the Kurds with freedom and the right to form Kurdistan, which ultimately led to the defeat of the Ottoman Empire and likely one of the largest deciding factors in the loss of World War I. By the way, the West never held up their promise. So in conclusion, the US enables and urges Turkey to shoot down the Russian jet, knowing this would cause Russian sanctions and a destabilization of the country, making a prime area for a Kurdish revolution. Possibly the biggest threat we have yet to see in the Middle East. These are my theories based on research and critical thinking. I would advise you to do your own research so we can crack open these new world order agendas. Wake up, everyone. This was Tyranny Unmasked.